I actually definitely hate this question of introduce yourself, because you just never know what people want to know. Like, is it where you from? What are you involved in? Who are you? But if I try to attempt to answer that question, I'm a Nigerian-born 25-year-old man. Lived in Australia pretty much my whole life now. And yeah, I think it's been a long journey of figuring out what are my skills, what are my talents, what can I bring to this world. But if I wanted to define that right now, I'm a young creative, passionate about community and passionate about conversation. Yeah. What makes me passionate about community? That's a good question, because I never actually saw myself being in this position. You know, if you asked me in year 12 in high school, what would you be doing? It's all about uni and studying, and that was like biomedical science at that time. It had nothing to do with, I guess, jumping into creativity or community. But I think what makes me passionate about community is when I've realized how beneficial it actually is and how much it's actually helped to shape me in my life. You know, I didn't realize just how much that I've been blessed to have a very, very good community around me when it comes to family, friends, you know, relatives, all that kind of stuff there. And it makes me passionate because I realized the impact that community had in my life is something that I actually want to see fostered in a wider sense for, you know, people around me as well. So I think I'm trying to be a part of creating that for other people now, I'd say, yeah. It's interesting when you ask about, you know, what is the differences between, growing up within the African community and then integrating in this kind of more Western sense of community now. I think at this point now I recognize that there's a big difference in regards to what my parents, our parents know of community in their experience and what we've had to build now. So I think, especially being in part of church, that was a very strong community. And when you've just moved to this country, you know, it's a lot of church involvement, you know, there's Bible study groups, there's church on Sunday. A lot of community revolves around things like that. And then in this side of the world, that's not necessarily very common. That's not what everyone's doing on a Sunday. That's not how everyone's spending their time during the week. So I've had to kind of realize how to take a lot of the principles learned from what that kind of a community taught my parents and what they brought here with them, and try to implement that into a community here where everyone has, I guess, their own priorities sometimes, or people are quite busy in their own lives, but we still have to take some of these core principles of like actually genuinely caring for each other, or genuinely trying to achieve common purposes and common goals. Because I think everyone on this side of the world, we kind of get caught up in our own understanding of community, which sometimes really, we just think about ourselves more so. Yeah. I think the reason why I haven't stepped away from some of those values is I've seen examples of when those values aren't present, what that actually can impact, you know, how that can impact people's lives. So there's friends, when I hear about maybe some of their family setups and some of their community setups, when I see some of those values aren't present, and I can see kind of the void that it leaves in their lives sometimes. So for me, as you know, Daniel now, the reason why I hold strongly to what some of these values have taught me is because I realize it's actually beneficial for me at the end of the day. And going back to what I'm talking about, community, if I have this community that holds these values and I'm trying to build something like that here, it only makes sense to, you know, carry that into what I'm trying to do as well, and holding that as, you know, as part of me now. I think COVID has made me a lot more aware of community. Not just as a word or a concept, I think, but in terms of the actions that are required to actually uphold something that we call community. So COVID, I had a different experience to what a lot of people kind of, I guess, had with COVID, in the sense that it was a time where I was very much achieving things that I hadn't even thought of being able to achieve within that certain time frame. So like, you know, whether it be some financial goals I'd had, or some of the life goals I'd had, educational goals I'd had. COVID was a time where I was actually able to knuckle down on some of those things there. But what that meant for me, I kind of felt it very strongly at that time as well. It meant that was a year when I thought I was going to really be focusing on me, but it turns out that a lot of my energy was then put into actually looking after a lot of other people instead during that period of time, right? In regards to people's mental health and stuff. So a lot of friends, very isolated during that period of time. It meant that was a time where a lot of people I would having so many more phone calls than I'd normally be having, messages that I'd normally be having. Zoom ended up turning into like, I'd go from one Zoom meeting, we'd talk for a while, and next thing you know, you're on Zoom for 12 hours. I think I clocked up one day, just talking to the same group of people on Zoom. So I guess my concept of like community and stuff, it made me realize just how important it is in terms of like actively, you know, participating within it, right? So people actually need this, and we were very it was brought to our attention just how important it was when we lost a lot of that. And we had to think of community in a different sense during that period of time. So like I'm saying, the phone calls, the Zoom calls, sending things to people's houses, to say I'm thinking of you, all that kind of stuff there. And really community turned into a very active thing as opposed to just what we talk about or what we think about and stuff. How did I kind of look after myself during that period of time? Like I said, I'm pretty blessed for the people around me. So, my parents, my sisters, I have 3 younger sisters. So we were literally all trapped in the same house for that whole period of time. I've got my now fiance, girlfriend at that time. Great support in my life as well. So I think without me realizing, having those types of people around and being able to now spend a lot more time with, let me say, my family, for example, now, spending a lot more time with them compared to normal, it was actually very, very refreshing in that sense there. So even though I am kind of pouring out into other people's lives or checking on other people, whatever it might be, the time that I was now spending with family was almost like automatically recharging me at the same time. I think as well, though, I can't say any of this without mentioning like faith as well. That was a big grounding factor during that period of time. And I made a very active effort that whatever conversations I was having with people in regards to what they're going through, I can't not mention faith within it, right? Like there's no way I can be trying to live the benefits of what faith has done for me and not actually mention it to other people and say, yo, honestly, if you want, I can pray for you right now. Or this is something I was reading during the week, like, I don't know what this can do for you, but here, have this, this passage, this verse kind of stuff. So I think that's definitely one of the bigger reasons or bigger aspects of how I was able to be fueled or refreshed even while still being there for other people. It's funny because I feel like a lot of the emotions that people were having at the start of COVID, I had gone through a lot of that 2 years prior. So 2018, even 3 years actually, it was about 2017, this was my second year of uni. That was a period of time where I never felt more lost in my life, right? And I was just trying to figure things out, understand what am I actually trying to do here. So 2019 ended up being a very much introspective year, even 2018 as well. 2018 to 2019 ended up being very introspective after what 2017 felt like. So I kind of was walking into the COVID time with a fresh battery because I had been doing a lot of that work on myself prior to that. So it was, I guess, confronting at some points in the regards to like, wow, I'm actually disconnected from people. And you're hearing such like tragic stories of even just like death at that time. Like when was the last time we'd get a daily count of how many people are dying within your city? That doesn't happen, and like it's a very confronting period of time and you don't actually know what that does to the human psyche at some point. But because I've been grappling with so many other things years before that, walking into that period of time, it was slightly a little bit almost refreshing a bit, I think, the really, really humbling moment of really everything slowing down. That pace, I think, allowed me to really reform some of my thoughts and things like that, and I guess solidify a lot of the conversations I've been having with myself the years beforehand, I think. Yeah, when I say that God was preparing me for it, in some regards, yeah, maybe. I think God's always preparing us for something, regardless in life, and we just have to take the lessons out of every single kind of experience we go through. Everything is going to be beneficial at some point in life at the end of the day. So I don't know if I can explicitly come out and say, yeah, God was getting me ready for COVID, you know what I mean? This is exactly what it was for. It might be something else down the line in my future that a lot of those experiences have actually prepared me for. But I think I can definitely say that it was beneficial having gone through that period of time earlier for that season that we all ended up going through, for sure. Yeah, I think in 2022, we got straight into everything we've been speaking about. We actually had I remember, I think it was in 2020, we had like an online like men's group. We would do like weekly Bible study sessions kind of thing. It became even just a little bit more than that, just talking about life conversations as well. Like I mentioned, we were doing the online workshops for our community organization. We're recording Zoom podcast episodes for my podcast. So in 2022, it was like, all right, we just have to bring all of this back to life now. So and doing it like to the full force of what we wanted to do. So, we were plugging ourselves as a podcast into so many more, spaces, doing many more events, putting our face out there, and just trying to like actually touch some of the people, like physically connect with the people that we've been building a community around online, for the past 2 years kind of thing. In regards to community organization, we started launching our events, in full force and really bringing out that space. And we realized that people wanted this and had been craving this, because as soon as we got back into it, the intake was kind of beautiful, it was awesome. People were ready to get right behind it and things like that. In regards to church and, youth group there, the community that we've got there, it's like, all right, we need to have regular catch-ups. We need to take this kind of thing seriously, because I think something I realized is when you actually properly look at your hands and you see what you've been trusted to steward, you actually have to take care of that, because there's a certain sense of, I guess, responsibility of what's within your hands. So we just looked at the different things that let me say myself, that my hands was involved in. I'm like, all right, I actually have to take a lot of these things seriously, because something I heard from one of my friends was, if not you, then who? So if it's not me who actually has these things in my hands, then who's actually going to be the one to do it? And I would like to be a part of the story that is being created from a lot of these different communities that we're involved in. Yeah. You're giving me a hard question there. How could I build someone's hope up? I reckon if I get someone to kind of reflect on where they were in 2020 and where they'd say they'd be at now. As much as the pressures of life kind of distract us from the wins or from the breakthroughs, when you really, I guess, look at it sometimes, there are those glimmers of, I think, hope that you can pull out from a lot of these situations or from your life experiences, right? So if I get someone to almost like stack those things up, or I guess, quote unquote, count those blessings, you can realize just how many ways that you felt it was the end, and you've actually been able to come out of it ultimately. And I think one thing we realize is that, honestly, genuinely, without hope, there's almost no point of even continuing, to fight the daily struggles that we have when it's just common human existence. So I guess getting someone to remind themselves of the different ways that they felt that, hope was here, or I've actually come through in this way, and stack all of that up and really assess it and be like, all right, you know what, like, despite how many times I thought this was the end, there was more, there was still more for me. And I think looking at your position now, despite even now probably feeling like this is the end, there's still more for you even now. And I guess working towards that, or trying to build what you think would make you feel more fulfilled ultimately. Yeah, that's a hard question. What am I currently building to? I think right now, currently building a community where I think, I would like other people to be able to take control of it now. So I really want to be a little bit more hands-off with a lot of things that I'm involved in, and actually create something that can be sustainable in generations, and I actually don't have to be the one leading it. One, selfishly, because I think it's tiring sometimes to constantly be active in some of these things, but two, because then that's when I know it's actually making impact, when someone else can step into a machine or step into what you've been a part of building, and it's still achieving the purposes and the goals you intended, and even more than that. So right now, it's very, very, I guess, airy-fairy or altruistic kind of thinking, but I'm trying to build a community that other people can take into their own hands ultimately as well. Yeah, so whether that be through podcasts, through community work, church stuff, through my own actual work, or through community organization, I hope in all those different ways there's something that someone else can step into. I have had an idea of creating a charity. I've never been able to action it out, obviously, and that's a big undertaking. And some of the ideas in regards to like the events that will be around it and some of the purposes. Can't say too much obviously now because it's still the baby that's being created. But I think that a project where we can connect some of our struggles that we have here to struggles around the world and realize just how united the human experience actually is. That's what I want the charity to ultimately achieve. But obviously the specifics of it is it's a bigger project than that. But right now, just watch the space for the podcast and the events that we're trying to do there, and hopefully the community we're building around that. And I guess ultimately as well, just continue to plug into the community organization and our work there. I think we really want to create a space where we can talk about the issues that we all face. So that's another project there as well. It's Daniel, and then honestly, I don't know, Chief Olasoji on the gram. I like the ... there and the mysteriousness of that there, but I don't know, it's Daniel and then God ultimately, because that's been my grounding factor. So everything behind me is God, so I'll leave it at that. That it? I bet. Bruh. Boy.
You killed that.
Oh, look.
I was in his podcast. I was like